On a bright Tuesday morning on October the 5th, 1740, John Jameson was born, and though he will later grow to make one of the best Irish whiskies in the world, he was nonetheless born a Scotsman, but as the saying goes, he became more Irish than the Irish themselves. Sina metu, meaning without fear, is the Jameson family motto. Awarded for their bravery in battling pirates in the 1500s, this motto must have been the inspiration for young John's move to Dublin to make his mark and his whiskey. Now, going to Dublin to start a whiskey distillery around 1780 was actually a bit like going to LA in the 1940s to start a film studio. Ireland is reputed to be where whiskies were invented, and whiskey from Dublin was regarded as the finest in the world. Then along came John Jameson, a complete outsider, but with one set ambition: get the best equipment possible, use the best methods, and make the best whiskey in the world, period. And all this he did, sine metu. So in 1780, John Jameson established his whiskey distillery in Dublin and set out to achieve his ambition. For a start, he insisted on the finest ingredients, a tradition that naturally continues to the present day. He personally selects the barley and casks and wasn't afraid to pay top dollar for the very best. Whilst this endeared him to his suppliers, it didn't make him that popular amongst other less fastidious producers. At this time, most whiskies were distilled twice, like it is in Scotland. No harm in that if you're happy with a double distilled whiskey. John Jameson wasn't. He went that extra step and insisted on triple distillation, as he found that it made his whiskey twice as smooth. So why not 4 times or even 5? Wouldn't the whiskey get smoother still? Don't think John didn't try it. He'd try anything in the quest for perfection. But it turned out triple distillation couldn't be improved on. As John Jameson was pretty single-minded about quality, going for a single distillery process seemed the obvious choice. So to make sure quality was optimal, everything from the selection of grain and cask to triple distillation and maturation took place in the same distillery. It was a great thing to be working in the old Jameson distillery in the early 19th century. You got the best wages and working conditions, and you also got to drink with the boss. John Jameson was happy to share his time, his profits, and his whiskey with every single worker. After all, happy workers make the best whiskey, and workers mattered to John Jameson. He even shared his label with them. To this day, alongside the signature of the great man himself, you'll see 2 barrelmen on the label of each bottle of Jameson whiskey. How did Jameson know his whiskey was good? He ran market research in local pubs and taverns, the Brazen Head, Ireland's oldest pub, being one of the more well-known locations. He offered the regulars a glass of his new triple distilled whiskey. Not surprisingly, they loved it. And in typical Irish style, they shortened it to a Jemmy. In 1810, John's son John II had expanded the distillery to be one of the largest distilling companies in Ireland. In the late 1800s, his son John III expanded the business globally to make it one of the largest whiskies in the world. As you may have guessed, glorious John Jameson is no longer with us, having passed away in 1823 at the grand old age of 83. Quite an achievement for the early 19th century. But achievement is something John Jameson knew about. That's why all these years later, John Jameson's triple distilled whiskey, bearing his signature and seal, is still the world's #1 Irish whiskey.